Okay, how's everybody doing? So these are HO scale 187 Prizer figures. They're white styrene plastic. I like them because they're excellent sculpts. They really are. Like these are older. Like in fact, I'm pretty sure these exceed 20 years old. But the actual sculpts of these are just really superb for their time. And even in 2024. 2023, 2024, they are excellent. Like I haven't really, I mean, with 3D printing on the cusp now and pending and a burgeoning big part of the hobby now, that may not always be the case, but that hasn't been fully fleshed out yet. But these are excellent. And the fact that they're styrene means you can weld the parts easy. You can cut arms off, heads, turn them. Like for example, this one here, I added another arm and a hand because I want him to be pulling back a drape, like a drapery in a window. So I sort of changed that because he already had a good posture anyway. But it's kind of neat that like a lot of them are really quite full of character. You can see the different characters. Like there's this young woman, right? I don't know what she's up to, but she's sort of walking away from something. Then you have this, elderly lady here. It looks like maybe you'd want to go over there for an apple pie or something. And there's this sort of astute businessman. And there's this shady looking character, right? And then, of course, this dude right here. The nice thing about the art of the diorama in that sense is you can create a scene, right? Like I almost prefer there to be nobody in the scene because I want the viewer to write their own story, right? Whereas a painted figure anyway, will actually suggest the narrative. But then even then it's open to interpretation. But I'm going to play around a bit. I'm going to paint these up and then pose a few of them within River Road in association with this building, just to sort of add a little element of storyline and let people be the judge of that. So I'll just go ahead and paint these and then I'll show you what they look like on the layout, okay? So you can see I'm just airbrushing them a really light flesh color. What I did was I took some flesh. This is XF15 flat flesh, and then I took another bottle of about half white. I just made a really pale flesh. I just find that the stock flesh is a bit too pinkish, and thinned it down quite a bit. You can see that, I mean, I'll just paint the whole figure flesh. There's a lot of skin tone on this particular figurine with this woman with her legs and arms and face. So, but I'll just, because to me XF is like a primer for plastic, I'll just choose the flesh as the base color because that way I don't lose the crispness of the sculpt by hand painting, the figurine with heavier paint, right? And this way I can just use really thin colors. Because you're going to use muted colors anyway with like 187 scale is not the best scale to paint figurines or whatever, but 1/35 is probably the way to go or larger. But it helps to use an airbrush because of the microscopic coating that it'll put on, and it's nice and flat. And then I can use some oils for a little bit of, like to vary the skin tone and then just touch up, like in this case, a red dress, let's say, and black shoes or whatever, something very simple. That way you maintain the beauty of the sculpt. See that? See the shadow? Like there really are beautiful sculpts. Like look at this one here, see? Okay, so the flesh color is a good base color to lay like acrylic paint on, okay? Okay, so as you know, I just painted this a pale flesh Tamiya with the airbrush because it makes a really nice thin and good coverage coat. And I'm more concerned about the skin tones because if you get the skin tones sort of right, the rest is sort of secondary, right? Like the color of the clothing and everything, especially in 187 scale. But it's nice to be able to achieve a sort of face, light and shadow like that, like really easy. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do this, right? And then you can highlight these even if you want to, but you'll probably need a smaller brush than this. But the two brushes that I'm going to use is just this basically 2.0 or 2/0, just for putting the pure color onto the face and hands, which I'll show you in a second. And then this is just a wider brush. It's just an Opus synthetic. And this is just to wipe it off. So I'm going to be putting the paint on and then just wiping it off. And then what's left, like in the sense of transparency associated with oils, because oils over acrylics are the true transparency pigment. And that's why it's a very powerful method when you put oil paint over top of acrylic and then wipe it off. It leaves a sort of transparent shadowing effect with one application, okay? So what I've done here is I've taken a little bit of burnt umber and burnt sienna, okay, for this particular first shade over top. And I put it on some paper. You can see there's a little bit of a halo there, an oil halo around the paper. That's to leach out some of the oil. And that'll cause this paint to dry much quicker, okay? And you don't want to use any thinner with this method because it won't work. Like what I'm about to show you will not work if you use thinner. It just thins it too much and turns it into a kind of a yucky wash, and it just doesn't have the same effect, okay? So I'm going to take, like this is going to vary, but I like to take a little bit of the burnt umber, a little bit of the burnt sienna, and just make a little bit more reddish brown kind of color, okay, right here. Like it doesn't really matter that much, okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take this little apple pie lady, okay, and the challenge is staying in focus because I'm zoomed in and the depth of field here is not that great, but I think that's pretty good right there. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to put the pure paint right on, right? So there's no thinners, right? Just going to cover up her whole face. I'm not going to worry about anything else because I'm going to do the, I want to get her neck though. That's important. I get all the skin tone, and I'm not worried about slopping it around onto her clothing and stuff because we haven't painted that yet. And once the oil is dry, you'll be able to just paint acrylics or even oils if you want right over top. And then see the hands here? So we're going to paint those too because we want to get all the skin tone, which is the Tamiya flesh. We're putting this dark mixture of burnt sienna and burnt umber right over top of the Tamiya. And the oil paints over top of Tamiya acrylics, or any acrylic for that matter, is a marriage made in heaven for doing filters and layers. Now, I don't know what the deal is with her legs. Maybe she's got stockings or nylons, or, you know, I mean, I don't know really. But let's just paint them anyway because I can always paint over it, right? Like later once it's dry. So we're just sort of covering that on there. We're not worried too much about getting paint on the shoes and the dress and things like that because we just want to get a basic skin tone. We're going to do that first with this method. And once again, this is the system by Francois Berlinden and Bob Litterman, who are now both passed away, along with Louis Pruneau, also was another type of mentor to me. You know, that was the period that I kind of grew up with modeling. Okay, so now you can see that this figure, let me just move this white out of the way for a sec. So all the paint is on there, right? See? Now what we're going to do is we're going to take, it's nice to have a little bit of a cloth on the side, right? Right here. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take this, make sure I'm in focus here, and we're just going to remove it. We're going to wipe it away. Okay. I'll wipe the brush off a little bit here on your cloth. So essentially what you're doing is you're no thinner on this brush. Okay, it's a dry brush, but now you're removing all that paint you put on. What? Now he's removing it? Yep, you're going to remove it because what's going to remain is the oil transparent filter, or the transparent burnt umber, burnt sienna filter, and it's going to give that first shadowy skin tone filter. Okay. Now once again, you can vary this base coat to whatever kind of complexion that you want, like that. Okay, so now that that's done, watch with the face now. This is the part that's really cool. Okay, so it doesn't look like much right now, right? But watch this. Couple of wipes. Look at that. Isn't that neat? I mean, that's all it took, right? So you've already have the basis of a really cool shadowed skin tone. And it really doesn't matter how much you rub and wipe. Like, you don't want to get into the eyeballs and under the nose and the mouth. You want to maybe wipe down, like wipe away the forehead, but leave the residual. The residual oil paint will stay behind. And already just with the base coat Tamiya flesh and this oil umber paint put on and now removed already gives you a practically acceptable skin tone. I mean, if you were to paint this figure, like just the clothing now, and maybe even use oils, as you say, like put on like blue, let's say, or green, and then wipe it off a little bit, like just remove it, it'll stay dark in all the creases, and you'll have this flesh always coming through as a kind of a highlight. Do you know what I mean? So that's a good way to start out with figures if you're intimidated by it. And it's really simple, okay? So this guy's looking for a new apartment at the slum landlords. And he does notice one thing. It's a nice view of the tracks. Maybe not as good as the last view he had. But you know how it is. Things can be tough sometimes. Anyway, here's where he goes, right? It only takes one figure to tell a story, right? You know what I mean? That's what I love about this hobby, right? There's so many aspects of it. You know, the sky's the limit. Like, you can't tell enough stories, I guess, you know, in this hobby. It's just you don't need a big layout. Once again, I know I stress this, but you don't need a big layout, right? You just need something that you can really, you know, tell a story and enjoy, you know, not only trains, if that's really what you're into. And I've always loved trains since I was a kid, but when you infuse some of your life experiences into your model railroad or your diorama, they just seem to have a special kind of impact, you know, on you, right? And anyway, I sort of have plans for the slum landlord, but I just don't know how it's going to pan out. So I'm just going with the flow here. So anyway, I just thought I'd share that with you. Okay. Maybe he's looking out the window at that old car, you know.